Hello, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. This is Pasusu, and today I bring you a guide as to how I generate AI art myself. Any relevant links will be on the description down below. This is called the Nocrypt Colab remaster. When you open it the first time, it should look something like this. There is a lot you can do with it. So to keep things simple, what I usually like to do is tick these boxes, output to drive configs in drive, and no custom theme. It's another one. Anything BAE, WD, SD. And on this section is where you put the model that you're going to use. You get them from many places like GitHub or Hugging Face or civitai. This is where I get most of my stuff from. What I would recommend if you're starting out is Macross V2. When you click here, right click, and you can copy the URL and paste it here. It will also be on the description, of course, so you don't have to do that. I'm just telling you in case you want a different model, you can do it that way. So with these options enabled, we can run the code. The first time you open the notebook, it takes about 3 minutes. There are times where it's a bit slower. It will take like 7 minutes if it's slow. In this case, since it says I already opened it, it shouldn't take that long. It might take like a minute or two. So you don't want to watch the code loading in, you can skip ahead like 1 minute or 2 minutes. And this is just to show you how the link is going to look like when it's ready to get run the AI. Oops. So we just wait for the code to load. It's almost done. Okay, so it took like 1 minute and 8 seconds. There will be two URLs. In this case, the one you want is the public URL. So let's click that one. And it will load up the UI. It will look something like this. Stable diffusion checkpoint is the model that you're currently running. In this case, if you remember, we want Macross V2, so let's load it this way. In SD in SD Bay, we also want to change it. This one that comes here is pretty good, but I think at the moment the collab is sort of like bugged out. It's not really an option. I don't know why it appears there. As you can see, we cannot even select it. So instead of leaving it as it is, we will change it to the GAE, FTMSE, and all those numbers. Excuse me. So now we are ready to use the UI to make some images. This right here is the positive prompt. This one is the negative prompt. The positive prompt is what you want in the image, and the negative prompt is the opposite of that. In this case, you put here everything you don't want to see on your image. This is the one that comes by default. You can leave it if you want. Personally, I run a different negative prompt. I will try to include it on the description if you want to copy it. Otherwise, you don't really need to do that. The default one works just fine. So, actually, let's do a test so that you can be a witness as to how important it is. So let's not use the negative prompt. Let's just do an example right here. One girl, solo, blue dress, twin tails. how it looks. So it should try to generate this. Let's see what it looks like. It will take a bit of time. Excuse me. So this is the image that it made. As you can see, it's really not that good. It looks kinda weird, honestly. I'm not a big fan of how it looks. So in order to compare this image, what we're going to do is click this button. What it does is let you use the same seed, which is basically the same seed that you rolled. Basically, if you want to adjust your prompt and see the changes, that's what you want to do. Usually you don't need to do this. If you want random generations, you by default it comes as -1, so you can keep it as -1 if you want to keep generating. Right now, for the purpose of comparison, we're going to reuse the seed. So it looks pretty ugly, honestly, so we're going to try it with a negative prompt to see how much the image improves. So just wait and see why it's very important to have a negative prompt. So as we can see, it's a much better looking image. It's more detailed. I guess you can just rewind a few seconds to compare between the older image and this one. So it's very important. It's basically what defines the quality of the image. So we're using Macross v2. Each model has its own recommended settings. They're usually included on the description of the model itself. For Macross v2, what I prefer to do is 15 sampling steps, and then I change the sampling method to this one, and then I reduce the CFG to 5.5. Let's reuse the seed to see how it looks. The point of these settings is to create art faster with comparable quality as we saw before. This is just to work a bit faster without sacrificing much quality. So as you can see, it's comparable in quality to the other image. This is like the pretty basic stuff. I'm sorry. So we're going to get into some slightly more advanced stuff. So what we're going to try now is the high-res fix option. So we're going to click that shortly. Before we do that, let me change the height of the image. More modern models are able to increase the resolution beyond the 512. So that's what we're going to do to get more details out of the image. We're going to pick high-res fix, and there's a few settings that we're going to change in here. First, the upscaler. By default it comes as latent. Some people like it. I personally feel like it changes the image too much, defeating the purpose of upscale. I like full hardy remastered the most. It says upscale by 2. I prefer to reduce it a little. 1.5 is enough for me. The denoising strength is also very important. In this case I prefer to keep it between 1.3 and 1.5. We're going to work with 0.4 for now. And then there is the higher steps. By default it comes as 0. If you leave it at 0, it's going to act as the same steps on the sampling steps. So it's in this case it's going to automatically work with 15 higher steps as well. So there is no need for you to actually do this. You can leave it at 0. It will be the same thing, honestly. So I think that's the settings I usually work with. Let's see what image we get from this. Excuse me. As you can see, it's taking a bit longer. This is because we are working with higher steps, which increases the details in the image. So that's why we are keeping the sampling steps as 15, because if we increase it, it will take even longer than it's going to take for this one. So we're just going to wait to see what it makes in this case. Okay, there we go. There is our image. If you want to save it, just save it like you will save any other image with save image as. I'm not going to show you that because, well, you already know how to do that. You don't need me to teach you, and because I don't want to show my folder because reasons. I'm not going into detail. So there is a few cool things that you could also try. Let's say you're not very happy with her face. She looks fine in my opinion, but let's say you're not happy with it. What you can do is click this button to reduce the seed, and click here where it says Adetailer. Click here on enable Adetailer. You can ignore the rest, you don't need to change anything, and click on generate, and you will wait and see the face will improve. If the face already looks good, then there is no need to do that. In some cases it will actually make it worse, so only do it if you're really unhappy with the face. In this case, that was honestly a decent face, I would say. This is going to take a while, same as before, because we are using high-res fix, and also because on top of that we are also running Adetailer. So it's just a matter of waiting for our image. While it's doing that, I would like to return to this part. I forgot to mention that if you enable these two options, when you run the code, it will ask you if you want to the Colab to use the drive. So you have to allow it if you want to use these options. In this case, it didn't show it because I already executed the code before, and because I didn't want to show my email. So it's done already, and there is a new face. You can rewind a few seconds if you want to compare the face before Adetailer with this one, if you want to compare them, of course. And what else is there to say? Let's say you want to try another model, but you already opened the UI. You can use this option, batch links downloader, and on this text box you will write hashtag model and press enter, and then you will copy the link of a different model. Let's say you are interested, I don't know, math mix, I guess. I like this model a lot too. So same process, you right click, copy the link, paste it here, and then download all. You can also do the same for loras, but we're not going to do that right now. It's similar process. Instead of model, you write lora and paste the link of the lora. It's similar process. Unable to connect. Sometimes you get these weird errors because this site isn't exactly the most stable site. so you have to try it again sometimes. Let's see if it works. It seems it's working right now. 2 point. Is it really the right model? I'm not entirely sure. It's supposed to be the right model. I guess we will wait and see if it's the correct one. It should say mod mix. Seems like it is. So in this case, if you already have this open, it won't work even if you refresh. What you need to do when you finish downloading anything out of batch links downloader, you click the stop button and then click play again. The good news is that since you already executed the code, it won't take as long because it doesn't have to install anything apart from what it already runs. So instead of 3 minutes or 7 minutes, I don't know how long it's going to take for you, it will take like 1 minute or so. So usually the pages give you instructions on how it really works. Or you can just click an example image and try what you see there. So what was the model? Okay. 2 p.m. GPM plus 2M. Okay. You don't necessarily have to copy everything as it is. It's just to give you like an idea on how it's supposed to work. But you can change a few things if you feel like you need to change it. So it should open shortly. We're going to try that model to make sure that it actually works. There we go. So instead of copying the negative from the model, I'm just going to copy the one I've been using. So far I never seen a model that doesn't work well with this negative, so I'm going to keep using it. So now it appears the mod mix model. So we're going to do a similar process, except since this is a different model, it works differently from Macross v2. In this case I will start with masterpiece. You don't need to do this with Macross, but I think you need to do this with mod mix. Masterpiece, best quality, girl, blue dress, quintet, outdoors. I think that's the prompt we originally had. For this, I'm not going to use the same as the other one. I'm just going to increase it to 25. Usually between 20 to 30 works fine with DPM plus 2M caras. I'm going to use the same resolution. So what else needs to be changed? We're going to leave the scale alone because this model does work with this scale. It's fixed, same as before, remacry or remacry. I don't know how to pronounce the name, I'm sorry. So here, instead of leaving it at 0, usually when you work with a higher number of steps, you want to divide it by 2 and use that as your highest steps. In this case, it will be like 12.5 or something like that, I believe. But instead, since we can't use decimals, I'm going to, as a general rule of thumb, instead of you doing the divide thing, it's better if you keep it between 10 and 15. It's more easier to remember that way, I believe. I think the settings are the way they are supposed to be, so let's try it out. we will get a different style because we are using a different model. We're also using a different sampler. So just wait to see the image. Of course, it's going to take a bit longer because there are more sampling steps. So that's our image. That's the style of mod mix. Let's check this part just to make sure that we're actually using the right model. It should say here somewhere, there is the model, mod mix. So you can get very different styles from one model to another. For the sake of comparison, we're going to keep the same seed. Change to this one. I don't know what that model is, honestly. I never used it before. I guess we will see the difference between mod mix and this one. So we should get a different style out of it, even with the same seed. So there we go. That's the image that we get out of this one. I don't know how to call the model. And just to wrap up the video, we're going to go back to Macross bit 2. You just need to wait for it to fully load. So instead of using the settings that I normally use, I'm going to get them as it is, just to make the comparison more fair, I guess. So it changes a bit, as you can see. Basically try out different models and see what works out for you the best. But of course, Macross is the one I will recommend, because you don't need any of this masterpiece best quality. You don't need to set your sampling steps that high. Your CFG doesn't need to be that high either. You're able to work faster with it. So I guess that's really all there is for me to teach. Honestly, I don't see what else you will need to learn for your daily use. So I guess this is it for the video. I hope you were able to learn something from this, and maybe if you're interested on other topics, I can make a video about it. So until then, I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.